Welcome back, everyone, and we got some news to cover. For, for Indianapolis Colts head coach Frank Reich has been fired from his job after an abysmal start to the season and 9 weeks in. And they're going to be joining Panthers in the sweepstakes for maybe Sean Payton. Mm, And there are other options they will consider, obviously. But for now, the sweepstakes are for getting Sean Payton to be the next head coach. Mm, So there's now going to be questions to answer about how the Colts can get back into contention, and as but they still have Jonathan Taylor. So as long as you keep him around, you'll still have a key piece there. Where they definitely did not have a good start, or they've been relying on short-term quarterbacks for a while, and it's now starting to backfire. And all of this here in terms of how this squad has been. And their most recent loss to the Patriots pretty much sealed the deal for job security. And they're now going to be asking about whether or not they tank for Stroud. Also, so there's going to be some questions to answer with cap issues starting to come up, uh, with pricey extensions, and, and probably be forced to at least eat some of the 29.2 mil of Matt Ryan's contract. As you saw there, I'll get to the interim head coach in a minute. And supposedly Jim Harbaugh could be back after admitting that he still has some unfinished business in the NFL. But for now, at least Sean Payton is currently in the sweepstakes. He is still under contract with the New Orleans Saints. And so if he does come back, whoever wins the Sean Payton interviews, who's is gonna have to trade paid for his contract. Well regarded offensive coordinator ended up flopping as a head coach for some reason. But now we need to get to the shocker, or that is their interim head coach. They apparently looked outside the box for this one. On pur- they decided they could have gone with Gus Bradley or John Fox, even in Bubba Vidtron, who is a rising candidate. And they shockingly went with former Pro Bowl center Jeff Saturday. He played 13 years and went with a five-time Pro Bowler. Or an interim is supposed to be on the current staff. Basically making your insultant, not insultant, I meant consultant, making your consultant an interim head coach isn't that good of a look for a team. And so, according to some tweets, he's it's possible told that they're probably gonna use this as more of an audition for him to see if he's capable of the job. So this is a shocking move, and we're hoping to see just how this turns out. And he has 5 days to get ready to go to Las Vegas. But I want to take a recap of what happened under the Frank Reich tenure. So I want to go back to 2017 really quick. Chuck Pagano was fired as a result of all that stuff. They had to use Jacoby Brissett at that year, but when Frank Reich took over in 2018, it was because Josh McDaniels decided to hightail out before he could even coach. Coach Andrew Luck came back. He had a resurging year, but they ended up losing in the divisional round down to the Kansas City Chiefs after starting 1-5 for winning in 9 of 10. The following year, Luck surprisingly retired. The main passer ended up being Jacoby Brissett. They managed to finish at 7-9, which is impressive. They ended up going for the short-term answer at quarterback in Philip Rivers. He led them to a wild card spot at 11-5 before losing to the Bills. So Rivers retired after that. Then they decided to get Carson Wentz. They finished 9-8. Wentz is sent to Washington after a year. Then they decided to go after Matt Ryan, and they went off to the 3-5-1 start. That's why Frank Wright lost his job. Uh, the Colts should have been doing better than what they have, and suddenly Washington is proven right with having Carson Wentz at quarterback for some of this stuff. There has been a lot of questions throughout all of this. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure or if the Colts will be able to do well enough. We go back to this article here. A Bleacher Report states that fixing the offense and developing a franchise quarterback are going to be the top priorities for the next offseason. But they need to find a general manager who can find the right signal caller and hire the proper head coach for the job. So that way they can have a short term rebuild. So, but as stated, the opposite is that if they keep Ballard around down and miss and continue their short term QB options and selling with stopgaps and making poor decisions with the head coaching job, that they'll be back in the same song and dance. And which at this point the AFC South is left for the Tennessee Titans for the taking. And the Titans are likely to start getting better in the coming years now that they're probably found their answer at quarterback in Malik Willis. He shows flashes of promise, but still needs a little bit more time to develop. And I think that's the ultimate factor as to why they're going to keep rolling with Willis. But for the Colts, they need to find a new quarterback they can build around, and they're going to have to do so with whatever draft capital they have. Because unless they're willing to suffer through more and more of this, we could see more shockers that go way off the board and blow up. The Houston Texans have also tried to bring in a former player of theirs to be a head coach. That didn't go as planned, and they ended up with Lovey Smith, who I think at this point is just wanting to put the Texans through a rebuild. So we could be seeing some changes come to the AFC South, where the time they're going to be the sole competitors for the time being, unless Jacksonville can turn things around under Doug Peterson. And the last time that the Colts fired a head coach midway through the season was in 1991 when Venturi got fired. No, what? It was Ron Meyer that got lost his job. 1991 was the last time they fired their head coach in the middle of the season. Venturi ended up being the interim head coach for them at the time. I mean, that season they finished 1-15, and so up until now, they fire their head coach at the end of the year. Their Ted Marchibroda got fired after the end of '95. Lindy Infante got fired after 1997 ended. Jim Mora got fired after 2001. Tony Dungy, he I need he was he ended up leaving the squad after for 2008. He's currently in the NBC booth. Jim Caldwell, got lost his job in 2011 and spent a good stint in Detroit where he managed to bounce back before he got fired. Or Chuck Pagano got fired after the 4-12 season. And now Frank Reich just lost his job after 9 weeks. You can expect that Jeff Saturday to make his decisions with the coaching staff. I don't know if they'll be enough, if what changes he makes will be enough to beat the Raiders. But there may be some potential easy opponents coming up to where it's actually more doable. Well, but they're definitely starting to head down not so great of a stretch. Because even if they beat the Raiders, their next game afterwards is at home against the Eagles. Bulls, and they're gonna have somewhat of a brutal stretch coming up as well. Because three of the at least three of the next 5 or 6 opponents to close out the 2022 calendar year are going to be against legitimate opponents. Dallas Cowboys and Minnesota Vikings are the other two that joined the Eagles in having easy pickings. The Los Angeles Chargers, depending on how well they manage to bounce back at that point of the year, may possibly get hands on them. From 2023, they play the New York Giants If they play well enough, that could potentially be a loss for the Colts. Well, so even with all of this, is I can only see them winning 3, maybe 4 more games this year. Here as like a 6-10-1, 7-9-1 squad. Uh, they're not. I don't see this team bouncing, making a second half comeback to make the playoffs. Even if they manage to win every single remaining game against the Raiders, against the Eagles, against the Steelers, against the Cowboys, the Vikings, the Chargers, the Colts, and the Texans. You're asking for a tall order of winning 8 straight games in hopes of making the playoffs at 11-5-1, which is currently unrealistic. They're going to lose at least one, possibly miss out on the postseason in as well. This is not going to be a playoff team. They've already benched Matt Ryan despite his injury. There's going to be a lot of questions that need to be answered. The Times are celebrating as they now have an easy shot uh, at winning the AFC South. In fact, let's take a look really quick at where everyone else currently is. You take a look at the standings. and They've already played the Titans twice. They already played the Jaguars twice. They don't play the Texans until week 18. And the Titans are currently the leading the division at 5-3. And again, taking a look, I'll show the rest of the schedule here just so that you have a better understanding where I'm looking at. Raiders are favorites to win against the Colts. Yes, that's a winnable game, but how much is it going to be exactly? Again, and you got to face off against the Eagles, who are currently at the top of the NFC East. The Steelers are having a bad year right now. That may actually be doable, but still not a good look. Dallas Cowboys, 6-2, who competing in the NFC East. They're going to be a tough challenge at at Dallas Cowboys, pretty much AT&T Stadium. Um, then there's also Minnesota Vikings. And they're 7-1 and currently running away with the NFC North. They're gonna be tough. Los Angeles Chargers are the only ones competing against the Chiefs in the AFC West. As right now, they could potentially pose a challenge if they manage to right the current ship and make the postseason. New York Giants have done impressive to start under Brian A. Ball, uh, who came from the Buffalo Bills. Those and the Bills have won against the Colts before. They're no joke. Oh, so the Giants could actually win that game. Mm, And there's a lot of things that could go their way. Okay? And there's a lot of things that can't go their way. Worst case scenario for this squad right now is that they lose out and go 3-13-1. And that Jeff Saturday does not get the job after all. This is an experiment for them, and we don't know if this is gonna pan out or not. Uh, but with how close we are to Thanksgiving, to Christmas, to the next calendar year, it's gonna be hard to determine just how good this Colt squad is going to be under them. Because again, even though the AFC South is currently in the Titans for the taking, it's also possible the AFC South could have a losing team win the division. And the Jaguars are only a half game behind now. Now they could surpass the Colts, which is something that should be of concern right now. Now there's with how competitive the AFC is right now, wouldn't be all that surprising. And, and to update on how things have been going in Carolina, it hasn't been much better for the Panthers either. Or current winner of the NFC South Buccaneers only have a losing record of 4-5. Someone could win this division at 8-9 and get in. And then there's not all that many good teams that could actually compete for a playoff spot right now. I know I've gone off track of this, but I just wanted to state out things are not looking in favor of the Colts either. Where Versace was the exception for the Raiders in terms of running the ship, and that hasn't been the case here. You take a look at the preseason. Preseason games don't matter, right? These are your preseason games here, where they were lucky to won against the Buccaneers on that final week. So expectations were pretty low already to start, and they sunk even lower. Or when they tied the Texans, lost in Jacksonville, they'll shockingly beat the Chiefs, only to turn around and lose to the Titans. Somehow won against the Colts in overtime. No, somehow won against the Broncos in overtime. Sorry, managed to beat the Jaguars and actually have a winning record, only to then turn around and lose three straight games against the Titans, against Washington, against the Patriots. This is not the kind of team you want to win a championship with. If things don't change in Indy, they could potentially go into a rebuild next season, and that could last for a few years, and things may look bleak for them. So thank you all so much for tuning in. And this is the second time I've had to make a fired head coaches video. There's probably going to be one on the Black Monday coaches that get fired later in the season. And I'd be surprised if the Raiders decide to fire McDaniels before then. And we'll see about that. But I definitely thought this was worth mentioning. And I do plan on doing a historical piece on the Detroit Lions soon. And I gotta wait till this season's over first before actually making a decision on there so that I can take into account 2022 season. And a lot of information is done and ready to go. I just need to wait to see how the rest of the season plays out for them. And I'm also gonna be talking about future NFL stadiums, how likely they are to occur and stuff. What are the chances of the stadium being a success or not? All that stuff. So those are two videos I got in the works. First, in my next historical piece, it's gonna uh, be entering the works or is after the NFL season, and it's gonna be talking about the life of Winfield Scott up until his departure from the US military. So I'm gonna be doing a deep dive into his life and why he's held in high regards. Alright, thank you all so much for tuning in, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.